earth would possess a woman who doesn't even exercise to decide, I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro? Today we're going to meet Cindy from Belgium and hear her amazing story. Whether or not you have any interest in climbing Kilimanjaro, this is an important interview because it shows us how we can motivate ourselves to get bigger than ourselves. So stay tuned for one of my favorite interviews I've done on the Active Travel Adventures podcast. Welcome to the Active Travel Adventures podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks, and today I'm excited to bring to you an interview about an adventure that this woman took climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. It is the highest mountain in the continent of Africa, and because of that, it's on the bucket list for many avid hikers. And unlike the other peaks in the other continents, this one is actually doable for a fit hiker that does a lot of training. And you'll find today that Cindy has got an amazing story that it doesn't make a difference what she's climbing or what she's doing. She's going to inspire you to get out there and work on whatever goal it is that you have in mind. It's a remarkable interview. In fact, I was so fascinated by her story, I kept asking questions, and next thing I know, we were going really, really long, but I wanted to include all of it in this show. So what I'm going to do is break it into two parts. Today, we're going to go over what possessed her to do this, somebody who had never hiked before, and to choose one of the most challenging hikes that you can do. And how did she prepare? What was her motivations? What kept her going? And it's just a wonderful story. So regardless, like I said before, if you don't even care about climbing Kilimanjaro, you're still going to love the story. So please stay tuned for that. And then we will come back in 2 weeks with the conclusion of the Kilimanjaro episode, in which you will find out how Cindy got off that mountain, and it wasn't by her own 2 feet. The whole story is an amazing story, and I think you're going to love it. It's also interesting how I met Cindy. I was at a conference, and at one of the after-hours events, I was just chatting with this other woman, and she asked me what I did for a living. And I told her about the Active Travel Adventures podcast. She says, oh, I got to introduce you to Cindy. So she drags me by the hand. We go wandering all through this massive restaurant club place until we finally find Cindy. And she and I hit it off, and it was too noisy to talk too much that night. So we got on the phone and just had a marvelous, marvelous chat. And I just can't wait to share it with you. But before we get started, I want to talk to you a little bit about what is Kilimanjaro, for those of you that are not familiar with it. Kilimanjaro is the highest mountain in the continent of Africa. It's located in the country of Tanzania, which is a really cool country. So even if you don't want to climb Kilimanjaro, it's still a great country to go to just to go on a wildlife safari. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a future episode as well. And Kilimanjaro itself is a dormant volcano that sits around 19,000 feet high, around 4,900 meters. It's made up of 3 cones, Kibo, Mwenzi, and Shire. One's dormant and 2 are extinct. And it's located in the Kilimanjaro National Park. There's some interesting stats about the people that have summited Kilimanjaro. The fastest male to ascend and descend the mountain was a Swiss-Ecuadorian mountain guide who in 1981 ran to the top and back in less than 7 hours. The fastest woman was pretty quick herself at about 8.5 hours. Generally speaking, you have to be at least 10 years old in order to attempt Kilimanjaro, but occasionally they'll make an exception. And in March of this year, 2018, a 7-year-old ascended and descended Kilimanjaro successfully. People with disabilities have even climbed Kilimanjaro. A man in a wheelchair did it in 6 days, which is a very short trek. And in 2012, a man who had no forearms or lower legs managed unassisted to climb up and down. Amazing. So if they can do it, and after listening to Cindy, you hear her story, she can do it. If you want to do this trek, you can do it. But you need to prepare, and you need to allow yourself enough time to acclimate on the way up to give yourself the best odds of a successful summit. There are several routes to take, and depending on which route you take will determine the distance, but figure roughly about 40 miles or 60 kilometers. The big thing with this trek is going to be the altitude. Even though it's a gradual uphill, it goes really high, and I promise this is going to be the highest mountain, or in this case a volcano, that we will do on the Active Travel Adventures podcast. But because this is such an important trek for so many trekkers, I did want to include it on this show. Other considerations are going to be the cold, because you are up high, and the wind. So you're going to need to be prepared clothes-wise, and your tour company will give you a good gear list on all that. But if you want more information about dealing with the altitude, I'd also recommend you check out our Costa Rica episode number 15 and the Bhutan episode 20. I'll have links to both of those in the show notes. But just about everybody that attempts this climb is going to have some at least minor symptoms of altitude sickness, which will be at least headache, a little bit of nausea, you might have a little diarrhea, and it's just going to be part of the game if this is something that you want to do. That's just going to be part and parcel of this whole hike. There's a pill that you can take that will also help you with altitude sickness, and I did take those as a preventative measure in Bhutan. I'll put that on the website. Only about 2/3 of the people that attempt to climb Kilimanjaro actually make it to the summit. So if you want to be one of those 2/3 that do make it, you want to do all the preparations that we'll be learning about from Cindy in just a minute, as well as going with the tour company that gives you plenty of time to acclimate. This is not a place to go cheap. I'll have my recommendations in the travel planner. But regardless of who you go with, make sure they are responsible, reliable, and they have trained altitude guides with you. One of the cool things about Kilimanjaro is when I was there on safari, I could see it in the background because it juts out of a plain. So it pretty much is flat, flat, flat. Then all of a sudden, there's the volcano, and you start going straight up. One cool thing, because you are starting in the plains and going up so high, you actually go through 5 different ecological zones, so that's kind of cool. There are 7 official treks to get up to the top of Kilimanjaro, and I'll outline those on the website so you'll see what the pros and the cons are of the different treks. Some are easier than others, but the easiest ones may not necessarily be the most scenic ones, and some are brutal. In fact, one of my favorite stories I've ever heard about Kilimanjaro is a hiking buddy of mine. He's that crazy guy I've mentioned a few times that does all these endurance things like marathons across the deserts and all that kind of thing. So, of course, he picks the hardest trek to go up. And when he was near the top, he just couldn't do it anymore, and he just collapsed. And he told the guide, "Go on ahead without me. I just can't go any further." And the guide looks at him down the ground, and he says, "I can't leave you here. You'll die." And he's like, "Go on. I'm good with that." That's how tired he was. We're not talking about that kind of trek. We're going to go over on the easier side. And in fact, I think Jim told me that they've even closed down that trail. It was so difficult. But I know you're not going to go up the crazy trails. You're going to take either the easy or the moderate one. And the key thing you're battling is going to be the altitude, the cold, and the wind. And another consideration, and this is one of the reasons people have problems when they do this trek, is they try to do it too quickly. You want to allow yourself enough time to acclimate so you minimize any chances of altitude sickness. But the problem is the daily national park fees are expensive. So a lot of people think, "Oh, I'll save money. I'll try to do it in lesser time than's recommended." If you're going to do it, just cough up the money for the park fees and take your time and take a longer trip up there. And that gives you the best chance of success of summiting. And you need to be mentally prepared that you may not be able to summit. If you do have signs of severe altitude sickness, you need to be prepared to turn around. Jim was just tired. That was different. He did not have altitude sickness. The guy would never force him to go forward if he had severe altitude sickness. I know it would be mentally painful if you spent all this time and all this money to get there to do this, to turn around. But if your body is telling you you cannot physically do it because of altitude sickness, you got to turn around. You're all but guaranteed to have some symptoms. It's the acute or the extreme symptoms that we're worried about. And here's where it's important to hire a good company with well-trained altitude guides. Now that we've learned a little bit of the background of Kilimanjaro, let's meet our guest Cindy, and I cannot wait for you to hear her amazing story. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Cindy. Could you start by introducing yourself?
Yes, so my name is Cindy Franken. I'm living in Belgium. Actually, I just turned 44, and I'm an entrepreneur online. I'm teaching business owners how to sell from the heart. And I have one daughter, Kimia. So she's my biggest inspiration. Actually, she's mentally, physically disabled, but she is everything in my life. And beside that, so I'm living close to Brussels, so in a village, and I love the countryside. I love nature, and I have two cute chihuahuas, Ramta and Mr. Love. Voila.
Sweet. Great. Thanks. Now, I know today we're going to be talking about your trek to Kilimanjaro, but had you ever done any adventure hiking or anything like this in the past?
No, I didn't. So it was really out of my comfort zone, really.
Is that because it's something that would never have occurred to you, or is this something that's so far out of your normal day-to-day life?
Yeah, quite. I mean, I did some sports before. Actually, I love kids. I love challenges, and so it was another entrepreneur that challenged me. And if somebody challenges me, then I'm like, okay, I can do this. Yeah.
So what did this entrepreneur say to you? Can you tell us a little bit about how this all came about?
Yes, I can. Actually, it was really like a coincidence for me because I've been running my company for 2 years, and I must say that I put on quite some weight. So my intention, it was December 2016. So my intention was for 2017 to become more healthier, to pay attention to what I eat and to lose weight, and I just wanted to feel more energetic. So I was really hoping like, oh, what could I do? Because I hate sports, honestly. I had so many fitness subscriptions, but I never went. So, and then all of a sudden, so I asked like, what could I do that really gives me joy and that helps me to lose weight and to feel more fitter and energetic. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call from Hugo Bakker, who is also an online entrepreneur in Holland. And he's a business partner, and actually he challenged me. So he said like, you know what, I'm going to climb the Kilimanjaro, and what if you come with me, and not only you but 6-7 other entrepreneurs, and we don't do it for ourselves, but we do it for a good cause. And so we raise money, we raise awareness, because being an entrepreneur is also important to take on challenges, to go out of your comfort zone, and also because it's not about the money, it's about the money is the tool to achieve your dream. And so he just challenged me like, if we do that, then we can make other entrepreneurs aware that they perhaps will also share their money or give money to a good cause. And so actually when I started my company in 2015, from the start I said like, a part of my benefit will go to a home for disabled children in India. And so that is my good cause. So when Hugo challenged me, actually I felt like a strange feeling in my belly, like, oh my God. And then I said, listen, I have to think about it. But I felt excited. I already felt myself like I was on top of the mountain. And then I took about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks time to decide. But honestly, from the first moment he called me and he asked me, I could already feel like I'm gonna do it. It was bigger than myself.
So how much time from the time you first decided to do this until you actually went on the climb? And tell us a little bit about your preparations.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Actually, so I took the decision. So he called me around beginning December 2016. And so like 3 weeks later, end of December, I said yes. And then I realized like, okay, now I need to do something because when I take upon a challenge, I'm quite ambitious, and also I have a lot of followers. So I said like, okay, I need to have a plan because I hate sports. So how in the world am I gonna do it? Because I didn't do any training or sports for 5 years. I put on a lot of weight, so I think, I don't know in pounds, but in kilos it was like almost 80 kilos, which is quite heavy for me. So I first thought I'm gonna go to a fitness, But yeah, I immediately felt this is not what I found out in January. I wanted to start with the fitness, with the program, and I went to a local fitness center. But yeah, I felt a lot of resistance, and I said, okay, this will not work for me. So then I started looking for a personal trainer. And I wanted a personal trainer. Why? Because I knew there was going to be a lot of resistance from my part. And also I have a successful company. So I don't have much time. So I knew I needed help from a professional, and I needed a plan. So that's when I found, it was like the end of January, I found Bart, and he has a company, a sports company, as a personal trainer, and he gives boot camps. And so he was really excited. There was a fit between us, and so we made a plan together, like from January, starting end of January to till September. So I was going the 9th of September. So we made a plan step by step. Like every month, I needed to achieve a certain goal. And so, yeah, it were like beginning baby goals, baby steps. But then, of course, it became bigger and bigger, because he said, if you have a goal like climbing the Kilimanjaro, it is really, not easy. If you see like, okay, here I am, I don't have any sports experience, I have a lot of weight, how in the hell am I gonna do that? So Bart said, we have to make a plan where you believe you can do it. And so we're gonna do that in baby steps. So every month we are gonna have a small goal, and so okay, I can achieve this goal, I believe I can do it. And then we go to the next goal, and then we go to the next goal. And so that's the way we did it, actually. So, for example, the first month I had to walk, for example, 2 or 3 kilometers. And then the second month, there was a mountain here about half an hour from my home. And so then I had to climb that mountain. And so every time when I had the next goal, and I achieved it, I became more confident, like it's gonna be possible, I'm gonna do it. And so that was the way, and I really started believing it's gonna work, I'm gonna reach the top. So it was really step by step.
Did you have any idea how hard this is going to be?
No. Actually, Hugo, who challenged me, he knew. And I think he just told me like, oh, if you train for it, Cindy, you will be fine. It's just a walk. It's not really climbing with materials and everything. So he just said, if you prepare and it will be fine. So honestly, I didn't look any videos on internet to see how it was, because I knew if I was gonna watch videos or read a lot of things about people climbing the Kilimanjaro, I knew I was not gonna do it. So actually, so I had, honestly, if I had known it's gonna be that hard, I think, oh my God, I'm not sure if I would have done it, honestly. But I mean, so he didn't tell everything.
That's sometimes for the best, right?
Yeah, of course, for the best. I think it was exactly for the best, because also the other, so we were like a women's team. There were 2 men and 5 women. And also the other women said like, oh my God, if I would have known it was that hard, we wouldn't have done it. But anyway, no, I'm so happy I did it, honestly. And it's... It's like, the kids, the climbing the Kilimanjaro, it's like the same like running a company, because so you also put goals, you put ambitious goals, you have to go out of your comfort zone, and so you make a plan, you take action. You have sometimes resistance, sometimes things go well. But also when I was preparing for the Kilimanjaro, all of a sudden I got an infection. on my calves and Achillespees. I don't know the word in English. But anyway, I mean, I got injured, and so we had to change the plan. We had to instead of running, I had to start bicycling, for example. So and that's also when you have a business. You also have challenges, so you have to be flexible. You have to look for solutions. You cannot give up. You have to go on, but be very creative and find solutions. So that's for me, a big insight when I was climbing and preparing for the Kilimanjaro. Like, hey, it's the same as running your own business.
That is so true. When you can't get through the door, you go through the window.
Exactly. It was like, oh my God, I cannot walk anymore. Okay, then you do other exercises, buy a mountain bike, start mountain biking. So we worked our way around so that I still found ways to train my muscles, even though I was injured.
You said earlier that you hated sports and exercising. Did you find, since you had such an audacious goal, that at least made the training interesting for you?
Yeah, I must say, in the beginning, there was no fun at all. So it was like, oh, Bart is here again, so I have to. And then, of course, I had a program, meaning that once a week Bart was here. But the other days I also had to exercise. And in the beginning, we had a lot of arguments. Because he said I had a watch, so he could control any move that I made. He said, why are you not training? And so in the beginning there was a lot of resistance. I didn't like it. But then I realized after a while, every time when I had my training, I felt so much better, kids. I really felt so much more energy and I felt really alive. I started losing weight. And so after a while, I got addicted to it. So I was in the morning, I got up, okay, I haven't done my exercises. So it's really strange. Like I said before, I didn't really like sports. And while I was preparing for the Kilimanjaro, I really started to like it.
So that ends up being life-changing in and of itself.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and that's also an insight. If you move, so as an entrepreneur, I sit in my office a lot, many hours, and so if you exercise every day, you move, and so you have more energy, and that also has an impact on your business. So your business starts moving as well. You get more energy in your business with your clients. So that was really an insight. Like, if I exercise, if I move, then I felt like my business was also in like a flow.
I love hearing about all the insights of the training and the psychology and the planning of doing this trek. But let's now move to Tanzania. And can you tell us a little bit about the beginning of your trek? Also, do you remember the name of the route you took?
So I was on the Makabe route, and so we arrived on the Saturday. We arrived in Tanzania, and we stayed on the Sunday. We got a briefing. So we were in total with 7 entrepreneurs, 5 female, 2 men, and we had 4 guides who were trained for altitude disease, and so who were very professional. And in total we had a team of, I think, 40 people. So on the Sunday we got a briefing. They checked a lot of things to make sure we were healthy, and so then they explained to us how it was going to be. So on the Monday and before noon we would start, and then Friday the goal was to reach the top. And so so it was starting on the Monday till the Friday. So that was the plan.
There are several routes to the top of Kilimanjaro, and the one that you took, you had the option of either tenting or using the huts, and that's the only trail with huts. Which did you do?
So we had to camp.
So had you ever camped before?
No. It was, oh my God, yeah. So I never camped before. So like I said, climbing the Kilimanjaro for me was really, really out of my comfort zone. To be honest, I prepared at home, so I did some camping in my garden.
That's exactly how I taught myself, and as you know, it's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me it was really a big challenge because I don't. So I never did camping. I really like my privacy. I hate the cold actually, and so I love luxury. So yeah, it was a challenge.
You're too much, Cindy. You take on this challenge when it's not that you don't even like to hike. You don't even like to exercise. You've never camped, and you hate the cold. Unbelievable. So let's talk about the weather a little bit. What was it like?
So actually we had sun. So I was really pleased with that. We had sun, of course, the last day on the top. We even had sun indeed when going to the summit. So we never had rain. So I was very pleased with that. We didn't have snow, so yeah, it was because I believe when you have indeed rain or snow, it's of course harder. Yeah.
You're climbing pretty high. It's cold though, right?
Yeah. So actually, there was one of the things I completely underestimated because I prepared myself. I think I was one of the persons that was the best prepared. So I did a lot of training, exercising. I took a lot of vitamins before. I even trained in an altitude at university in Leuven. They have a special altitude room. So I trained there for 4 weeks. I slept for 4 weeks in an altitude tent in my home. But one thing that I completely underestimated was the cold. They just told me like, okay, you take some special underwear, like as of the 4th day, and like ski pants. The first 3 days or 4 days, it's not that cold. But for me, as of the first night, I was completely frozen in the tent, and then I couldn't sleep of the cold, and there was quite some wind, and so that was for me the hardest challenge because I didn't prepare for the cold, and I didn't put enough clothes. In the night, I felt really like I couldn't sleep because of the cold. So it was for me, the cold was killing me. So I didn't sleep for 2 or 3 nights. I couldn't sleep, so that was killing.
So tell us about your porters and your guides.
So we had a whole team. I believe in total we had about 40 people, including the guides.
That's 14, 1-4, not 40, right?
No, sorry, 40. I think
40?
Yeah, 40. We had, I think, in total we had 35 porters, and everybody has special duties. And then we had the guides included. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think in total we were 38 or 39 people. Yeah.
That's an amazing support team for just 7 hikers.
Yeah. But actually, everybody has his duty. So you have summit porters, so they are really experienced for bringing you to the summit. You have people that are responsible for the kitchen, for the camp. If you need anything, then you have like somebody that is the toilet officer, for example. So yeah, you have all different duties. So yeah, it was amazing. So the crew was amazing. I could not believe, indeed. I didn't. The funny thing was that you arrive in the camp, you are exhausted, you don't see anything around you. You just want to eat and sleep, and that's it. But when we, on the Saturday, so we went down to leave, and then there was a big party, and then I realized how many people that were helping us and guiding us and I was shocked, honestly. I didn't see them. I did see some people, but not that many people that supported us, and they really helped us to get through. So it was amazing. Yeah, the people.
So many of your support people were up ahead of you so that when you got to camp, everything was all set up and ready for you.
Exactly. So everything was done, kids. So that's why I think they have a lot of people. So when we arrived, so even in the morning, they take away the tent, they take all the kitchen stuff, they go to the next camp, then they prepare already some food, they put up the tent, they put the toilets, they make sure everything is fine, mattress is installed, everything. So we didn't have to worry about that part. That was done. Yeah.
When I went on a camping safari in Tanzania, I was shocked at how good the food was. We actually had a French-trained chef. Tell us about your food.
Oh, wow. It was good. It was really good, Kit, because indeed they don't have a lot of stuff, just some fire. But honestly, what I ate during the climb was really good. So different kinds of things, spaghetti, pasta, but also potatoes, meat. And I knew I had to eat, because if you don't eat, you don't have enough energy. But honestly, there was always soup before, and then was really like a good meal. So even with dessert, so it was really, really, really good. Yeah, the chef. So there was an assistant chef in the kitchen, and there were even another person working in the kitchen. So the food was amazing.
And when you say a kitchen, you're talking about a makeshift tent of some kind, not a fixed building, correct?
Exactly. So it's just a tent, and then they put a table in it, and they put some fire in it, and they start cooking. And so we had like one tent when we arrive in base camp. Every day you have a different. You need to reach a certain place, and then you change in your tent, and then you go to the main tent, and there is a table with the food, with drinks and water, and you can fill your water bag and everything. So and then there was a separate tent where they did all the cooking.
Climbing Kilimanjaro is not a technical hike, but it's really tall, so you have major issues with altitude. Talk to us about acclimatization.
So that was indeed a challenge. So I did, like I said, prepare already in Belgium. So I slept 4 weeks in an altitude tent. So I had quite an advantage on the others. However, so you start, let me think, the first day you start at 1800 meters, and then you go immediately to 3200. And then, so the Tuesday, the next day, I think you go to up to 4000, and then you go 4006, and then you go back to, let's say, 4000 meter. And I must say, for me, so already when I started on Monday, when we started climbing, I was like, oh my God. So when we were climbing from 1800 meters to 3000 meters to base camp, I already felt like my breath was very difficult. So I said like, oh my God, I underestimated this part. So then I think the third day was acclimatization day. That means you go, so if I remember correctly, you go from 3002 to 4006, and then you go immediately back to 3000. Let me think, 3009 or something like that in the evening. So that was acclimatization day. And that day, actually, I almost collapsed. So I was actually, we were around 800 meters. And then all of a sudden I got a very headache. But in 2 minutes, it felt like my head was exploding. So I collapsed, and then actually my oxygen was quite low. So they gave me extra oxygen, and And yeah, then the good thing is that you only stay there on the 4,600 meter, you only stay there like between 30-40 minutes, and then you go immediately down. But yeah, that was quite, for me it was quite shocking to feel that, because breathing, we think it's just something normal, you know, when we talk, when we breathe, it's normal. But when you experience that it's difficult to breathe, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So afterwards, when I came back to Belgium, I was grateful for breathing, for having 98% of oxygen. So yeah, it's actually when the oxygen goes down, kids, to about, I think, less than 74%, it's going to be very difficult. And that's so I got extra medication for the headaches. So I had a lot of problem with the headaches, and we took extra medication for special altitude pills.
And how did the others in your group fare with the altitude?
I must say, one person quitted after at the end of the second day, because it was also very emotional, because you are fighting against the cold, against the fact that you cannot breathe. And so she was really like so emotional, and also physically she said, I don't think I can handle it. So she stopped. But the rest of the team continued, but there were actually one person had some problems with because you can have like problems with the lungs, that the lungs cannot take the air in, so it's a lung disease, and so it's very dangerous. So there was one person who started developing that disease. So it was on the 5th day. So they checked everything, like if it's safe to continue or not. So she did reach the top, but everybody actually took the pills except for one person. And yeah, so there were, I think, especially the last day when we went to the summit. So the last day you go from 4,600 meters, you go to 5,989 meters, so almost 6,000 meters. And that day everybody started having problems with the altitude. So yeah, I mean, but everybody made it, except for that woman that stopped on the second day.
I assume that your guides were well trained for the altitude, particularly at the heights that you were going at. The altitude sickness is a significant problem. I have a friend who has 3 times attempted to climb, I believe it's called Occoquan, and each time just the altitude got to him and he had to turn around. But if people persist and they have the severe symptoms, you're going to have some symptoms, but they have severe symptoms, you need a guide that knows when it's time. You got to turn around now. You don't want to go any further. So they were regularly checking everybody, correct?
Exactly. So they were checking us. Like, you have to realize it's not just go up, you walk, la la la, like that. It's not at all, because every step that you take, it feels like almost mission impossible. It feels like you're walking towards, you're climbing, but it feels like, oh my God, I'm not moving. I'm just doing like really baby steps. But every step that you take takes so much energy, because our group, to be honest, we were not really experienced people. So we were not athletes. So we just did a lot of course, some preparation for to climb it, but we were not professionals. So we had like every 10 minutes we had a quick stop, and they had extra oxygen bottles with them, especially the last day, because they had like 2 oxygen bottles, because they knew some of the people were going to be in trouble. And of course you can also notice it, because when you faint or you get dizzy, so that was what a lot of people had, me included. So at a certain moment I was really like very dizzy, so it happened a few times. So that's very dangerous. Of course, you need to have, I had the summit porter who was keeping his hand around my hand. And so the other part is, of course, the headache. So that was for me, I was the one with the most headache. And so every 2 hours I need to take, or I think every 4 hours, I'm not sure, had to take the pill. But they really checked on a regular basis how the oxygen percentage is. Because like I said, if it goes below, I'm not quite sure, but I think below 74, 73, 72, it becomes very critical. So because your brain doesn't get enough oxygen. So yeah, then they give oxygen and then you immediately go back to 90 or 90. Yeah, that feels amazing that you can breathe again. But yeah, they are very trained, so they don't take any risks. They check everything, and also in the evening they check if you went to the toilet, because of course that's something I didn't like it at all. But there are no toilets, but you have to go to the toilet every day, of course, and they check if you do everything, and they check the oxygen, they check everything to make sure that you are fine. And if you have pain or problems or whatsoever, they give you medication. So they are not doctors, but they are really very trained professionals in high altitude disease and everything, you see. And I think that is extremely important. If you want to climb the Kilimanjaro, make sure you have really a lot of assistance and people that are trained to help you.
In that thin air, it's going to be really hard to talk to your fellow hikers. So what are you thinking?
Oh my God, what was I thinking? Yeah, you cannot talk because that's not possible. You don't have the air to talk. You need every energy you need for yourself to move your legs, to put one leg before the other. Oh, what was I thinking? Sometimes I was thinking like, I cannot take it any longer. I was thinking like, come on, because I'm somebody who's very determined, focused, I'm very ambitious. So I was like, I'm gonna reach the summit, whether they have to drag me or whatever, or if I have to crawl, I'm gonna go there. But I must say I had some very difficult moments. And then I felt like I was thinking like, okay, I cannot take it any longer. I felt like I'm exhausted. I don't know if you ever experienced a moment that you think like, okay, I'm tired. I cannot take it any longer. I want to quit. Like really, you don't have. It's finished. And sometimes I had these thoughts, and then I said no. I said, come on, I have to do it. Still 5 minutes more. Come on, you can do it. So I was like motivating myself, like I can do this. And another thing, what was on my mind, and that was of course one of my biggest lessons, like I wanted to know how long it takes until we reach there, but they didn't want to say anything, like because it depends on the group, and we had some people with problems, so they couldn't tell like if it takes 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. So I was thinking about the time, like how long it will take. Will we reach the base camp before it is dark, and so on. So all these thoughts, like why did I do it, for example, what the hell am I doing here, how is my family. Sometimes I was thinking about my daughter, the cold. Yeah, I did a lot of thinking on the mountain.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the interview here, and we're going to pick this interview back up in 2 weeks. But I think you'll agree that Cindy gave us some great inspiration. Here's a woman who was 80 kilograms overweight. That's a significant weight issue that she was challenging. She did not hike. She did not exercise. And here she managed to take herself within about 7 months from a non-exerciser to the summit of Kilimanjaro. And what'd she do? Number one, she set a goal. If you don't know where you're going to get to, how are you ever going to find your way there? For people that are trying to do what Cindy's doing, sometimes they'll set a goal of achieving a marathon. So rather than saying, oh, I want to lose 80 kilograms, she found a purpose, something to do. And then she topped that off by making it bigger than herself by doing this goal for a charity that she felt a deep connection with, that made it something that was bigger than herself. Then she took this goal and broke it down into smaller parts. It's what I often hear referred to as elephant eating. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Eventually, the elephant is gone. But if you say, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to eat an elephant? It just is overwhelming. But if you say, oh, one bite, I can do one bite. So that's what she did. She realized that she wasn't cut out for the gym scene. So she's looked at where are the trouble spots for her. So she decided, all right, I've got something that is not just going to the gym. And then she hired a personal trainer that would hold her accountable. And once they figured out, okay, this is what we got to do, then they broke it down into bite-sized chunks. It reminds me of when I was about to turn 50, I wanted to do something to say, hey, I'm not dead yet. And at the time, I didn't bike, run, or swim, but I signed up for the Sprint Triathlon, which does like a half a mile open water swim, a 17-mile bike ride, and a 5K race. But I didn't know how to do any of those things. But I went online and I found a couch potato to triathlete in 12 weeks. And so I just did every single thing that thing told me to do, and I was able to achieve my goal and finish the triathlon with a respectable time. I mean, I was still no great shape swimmer or runner or biker, but I was proud of myself. And Cindy did the same thing with a much, much bigger challenge. And what they did is they broke it down into where they can get the easy wins. The first week, her goal was just to hike 2 to 3 kilometers. That's like a mile, 2 miles total for the week. When the whole goal in the end is to be hiking about 40 miles. So by getting those easy wins, that helps build your confidence and gives you the courage to keep going forward. Then they came up with plans when they had the setback. She got injured and could have said, I can't do it now. I've hurt myself. But no, she couldn't do the hiking anymore, but she found out she could bike. So when you run into the setbacks in your training, you figure out another way. You got to make it happen. So if you want to get into adventure travel, you want to find something that really gets you excited. If you're not sure where to start, just go to the directory page on the activetraveladventures.com website and just glance through the different episodes that we've already covered, or you can use the little magnifying glass search bar and put in the activity level, the difficulty level, the budget level for the different adventures that we've covered. The key is to pick something that really gets you motivated and excited. So pick something that you want to do and then figure out, what do I have to do to get myself in the condition that I can achieve this goal? Break it down, and then you have a motivation when you don't feel like it that day to do it. Say, oh, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it all the way to Fort William in Scotland, or I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. Anyhow, I hope that you've enjoyed this interview with Cindy, and I'd love to hear your feedback on it. If you would, please, I'd like to ask you to please share this on whatever your social channels, whether it's email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Share it. Use the hashtag Adventure Travel and hashtag Kilimanjaro, and let's get the word out. I'd love to see more people find the Active Travel Adventures podcast, and it's going to come from help from you guys. So I really appreciate, and I hope that you like what we're doing here. I love getting feedback. I want to give a shout out to Stan, who wrote back, "How have I never heard of this podcast and website before? This is going to keep me busy for weeks." Thanks for the email, Stan. So for Stan and all of you who are listening, if you like the program, please spread the word, because that's how people will find out about it. I'd appreciate if you share it with your email, your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, however you spread the word with your adventurous friends. I'd be most grateful. Thanks. In the meantime, I will be working on polishing up the back half of this interview, in which I'll also be talking about the African safari. So if you go to Tanzania, you're also the Serengeti, Ngorongoro Crater, and so I did that myself, and I also interviewed a company that does the a really cool adventure and cultural exchange over there. So I'm going to tack that onto the back half of Cindy's interview, part 2. Thanks for listening. I'll be back on Thursday in 2 weeks to finish up this episode, and until then, this is Kit Parks. Adventure on!